All right, let's kick this thing off because there's so much we can talk about.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody, to the Birth Queen podcast. I am your host, Rachel Nix, and I have a special guest, Simone Shepherd, here with me. And I feel like this is a long time coming, but perfect timing, in God's divine timing. And I feel like that's where we should start. I think you DM'd me. Is that what it was?
I did because, it was postpartum. I was in my 4th trimester and trying to figure it all out. I felt like pregnancy, and I know we'll get into this, but I lost a lot of me.
Yeah.
And when I would get on the mirror, and I was so grateful because my man got the mirror, but he didn't really use it, right?
Mhm.
And so I was like, you know what? I think this is for me. So I got on there and I flipped through a couple of instructors. The mirror does have good instructors, but just the way you just inspired me. You just made me feel like just keep on going. Just keep on going. Just like if you can just do this much, you know what I'm saying? And it was a lot of work on the part that I felt like I should have paid more attention to, not just while I was pregnant, but prior to. All the focus on the womb.
Mm-hmm.
Girl, that was really important to me. So, like that practice and just becoming aware of that part of me was really important, and you inspired me. So I was like, I was feeling good after work, and I was like, I gotta hit her. Who is this girl?
And then I was like, who is she? She got a lot of Instagram followers.
Girl, I was like, this is, and then I got into you. I started doing all my research. I looked at all the amazing things that you do, like incredible talent in so many areas, like wow.
Girl, we both Pisces.
Yes.
We're going to have me crying in the first
No, I'm serious. Like, you really, really inspirational, because as a writer who was like in the throes of pitching right before COVID hits, I get pregnant, and COVID lasts for almost the 2 years he's been on the planet, right? Like almost for like 3 years. So through my whole pregnancy, and then afterwards, it was like, how do I find myself again?
Mm-hmm.
And so, as inspirational as you were to watch and to lead me in instruction for my physical health, when I started looking at your page, I was like, girl, she does this with 2 kids. Girl, she look like this. Wow, she's this talented. She do all this, and the most important, most beautiful thing was I felt really seen, because I went through a lot to get pregnant.
Right.
I went through a lot when I had my baby and after I had my baby. And to see your focus was really, really intentional on acknowledging women who look like me, and addressing the care and the lack of care we receive. I felt like it was a safe space. Like, I found out so much information, because just like understanding the importance of having a community of birth workers who understand the process and understand you.
Right.
Even if you got to go to the hospital, because, I remember when people were telling me initially, like, you need a doula, you need a midwife. And I interviewed a few people, but it was on COVID. I had a C-section,
right?
All these things. I was like, no. But when I started following you and really, paying attention to your message, I was like, see, this is the part that I didn't know. I could have those things anyway.
Yeah.
I could have the support in addition to.
Right.
So I just really love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Simone.
I do.
So I feel like since you're here, I can share. I was supposed to be named Simone.
Yes.
And Simone and I are both Pisces.
Indeed.
And we're going to get more into Simone's journey, but Simone sees me.
I do.
And we had a moment in the car where I was like bawling, because I think I know you understand what I'm about to say, because we're similar, like, because we're Pisces and nurturers and givers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you stopped time and space to say, like, I see you. You're doing something great. Keep going, and know that it's not just the work. Like, it's you. Like, I don't even know.
It all.
Yeah. And it's like hard to even say out loud. Mm-hmm. But for a woman that I didn't even know to see me and say, keep going, you're special, the work you're doing is necessary. I just want to take this space and time to say, although I'm still like nervous, about to cry, like trying to iterate, like, or, reiterate what you said, it's important and it meant a lot to me. And there are days that I'm like, ugh, that your words replay.
That's
in my head. And I appreciate that because I know my approach to life is non-traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have opinions about that. Mm-hmm. But I see, as you said, the end. And I'm not really sure how I'm going to get there. But even on Saturday, I hosted my inaugural birth queen dinner with really dynamic birth queens, Black women. And I saw the dinner.
It was beautiful.
And it happened.
Yes.
Like every point that I wanted to convene Black women, to connect in a safe space, to share, to heal, to learn, and then to amplify and activate change. And like, I know that's happening.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Extremely.
It happened. Did you feel that?
It was a beautiful experience. First of all, I don't get out much, right? Because I feel like a lot of women who were there are mommies. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
But this felt really important, and listening to the women and their stories about what they've been through, all of our stories were very different, which is still, it's so beautiful because you think that that your situation is so specific, because it is, and also so different that no one cares, right? But then you can intersect, right, at a place where we all have had experiences that bring a lot of stuff up in us, right? And although they're different, like our birth experiences, the thing that was consistent was the lack of feeling supported as a woman of color, right? That was the theme. The lack of acknowledgement and knowledge. Like, we didn't care. Like, we didn't have no information. It's like you make a birth plan. This was the thing that was very, very consistent in people speaking about their experiences, was you think you have a plan and you can do all the research, but then when you get there, it's not like that. And I hear women say that all the time. But when I hear women of color say it, there's always a little bit of a bite underneath it, a little bit of pain, a little bit of holding back tears. And that is the part that you're addressing. And that is what's beautiful. Bringing the women in who are actually the birth workers to explain to us what our rights are and what type of care we should be expecting. Because if you've never had the care in any part of your medical experience, right, then you get there and have a baby, you want it to be different. Right. But that's not the case. And in the moments when we're supposed to be focused on the most beautiful experience of our life, the most beautiful part of creation, we have to still make sure we don't die.
What I find with Black women is, like, we're so used to being strong, and that's the expectation. What I saw were like the layers kind of just fall of weight. Mm-hmm. And that we were like, oh, you know what? I did experience disrespect. Yes. I did experience trauma. Mm-hmm. But to experience trauma and then to have to address it or report it, you have to relive it. You have to So how do you heal without a safe space to address it, right? Or to share. Absolutely. And so that was the thing. I can't put that shit in a deck. You know what I mean? You can't. I'm like, Black women, and these women were women of influence and affluence. Yes. And we were all like, wow, we've all been disrespected. And having a moment, because I believe when we have influence and affluence and resources, we feel a bit like, well, I'm privileged, so her life is harder than mine. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. But that's why I wanted all of us with a similar shared experience to be together. So it's like, but your experience matters too. Your pain matters, period. It doesn't matter how much money is in your bank account. Right. If you have pain, you deserve, number one, for that to have never happened to you. Right. Number two, to share that and us to make change.
Absolutely.
And it's tough, you know,
Yes,
like
it's
we're dying because we're
disheartening.
Black, we're being disrespected because we're Black, and we're
At
being
the most vulnerable
oh my
state,
God.
you're
Yeah.
stripped down. You don't have anything. You're stripped down to
Right.
the most vulnerable point, and you're asked to make decisions like, you know, I heard some women say they had to rush into a C-section, or all the different things, or, you know, you don't really know your options because you don't know what's available. So having women who can not just go through the experience, because like I said, all of our experiences that they're different, but having like midwives who are Black and who really care
Yeah.
to hold your hand, and even at the hospital tell your doctor, they're not doing that. They can, she can, all these things. Having an advocate,
Right.
because you're so vulnerable, you can't advocate for yourself, and even with your
Nor
partner,
should you have to.
yeah, and your partner don't.
knows.
He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know what to do, or even, you know, whatever your partner situation is, even if it's, you know, a woman that you decide to have a child with, you know, if she hasn't been through that, right, we still don't know how to advocate for ourselves in any circumstances. So I'm saying, like, just being a minority and being in a very vulnerable state, in a place where systemically the systems have not showed us any fair care.
Right.
How do you then manage while still, like I said, enjoying one of the most, you know, I think at the end, as survivors, because that's what we should really call ourselves, survivors, we look at it like, well, at least I have a child. Look how beautiful my baby is.
I survived.
Yeah, I survived.
But that's not enough. I don't want to forget to highlight, because I don't think people really acknowledge this enough. Like our partners, if they are Black men or brown, right? In particular Black, they're afraid to advocate for us because they don't want to get kicked out of the hospital.
Exactly.
Charles Johnson talks about that all the time. He's the one thing he replays is like, maybe I should have elevated and they would have listened and cared for Kira. But she told him, no, like, don't. I mean, when I had Baldwin at Santa Monica, UCLA, it was peak COVID, end of September, and I asked their dad for something, and he's like, you know, it was when right after Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and all of that, and I was like, can you just go get? And he was like, I'm not leaving the room. Yeah, he was afraid to just.
Because things were already really restricted.
Right. So he's like, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Exactly. You know what I mean?
Don't give them any excuses, and we shouldn't be living like that.
No.
Exactly. When our care is at stake.
Right. So when we connected years ago and you shared your story, I think it's so important. There's more awareness about fibroids in the Black community for women, but can you, if you're comfortable, share your journey about that? And what's so beautiful, and what I really want to highlight in this Birth Queen, you know, journey is that the solutions. And Simone has a beautiful story and solutions and tools for all of you who are listening, and that is what I love, because I don't want us to ever leave just like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like, no, that does not have to happen. And that is why we're going to put it into that. Exactly. And we're giving you resources. So share your fibroid experience. Of course, it starts pretty grim and dark.
It does.
But it ends with light. So I would love to
end with light. Let me just first say this, because I think it's important to highlight that this is my story, right?
Right.
So if you can relate to it, but just know that this does not have to be your experience, but I hope this brings about awareness. Right. So people can really be good advocates for themselves, right? So what happened to me is very long time ago. I was about 32. I'm 41 now.
Yo, that table was no cracking.
That whole table. The whole table was.
I didn't know everybody's age. I was like,
everybody.
Damn.
And then it really inspired me, because people try to tell me I'm old having a baby. Girl, them girls had babies older than me and
look 12, okay?
Okay. So that part,
I won't put no names out there, but I mean, the one person I'm talking about that was pregnant.
She looked
12.
She looked 12 years old. She looked 12. And she was an inspiration to me. So thank you very much for that. I needed to see that to know that is, possible, right?
And remove fucking geriatric pregnancy from your vocabulary.
Exactly.
It
That
means
exactly. So we'll get into that too.
I
But
hate that.
so, very early I always had heavy periods. And prior to that didn't have any money. I was on Medicaid. So I would go to the doctors and they were like, "Oh, you're fine. Heavy period. Y'all, you just have that. Yeah, you're black. Black women have heavy periods, blah, 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 blah." And then yeah. I saw
I
6
did not and do not have heavy periods, and I'm
Okay,
black.
exactly.
Okay,
And to the point where, they try to say it's normal. And right now, if you have extremely heavy periods, it's not normal.
No, yeah.
It's not normal. I don't care what they tell you, it's not normal. But I, in the process of probably from the time I was 27 to 32, consistently saw different doctors, 6 specifically, who told me I needed a hysterectomy. And one specifically had not really done the surgery a lot. Was like, but yeah, I'm gonna just like basically try it out on me. Like I need the,
Practice?
practicing on black women's wombs. They like to do that. Anyway, so we won't get stuck there. But yes. But I knew that was not my case. But if I was a woman who didn't strongly feel like I had received that I was going to be a mother, then I could have quite easily let him take my womb in order to have a more comfortable life, because my periods were heavy. It was hard to date. It was hard. I was always on my period. Like all these things were happening. Then I got into the relationship that I'm in and got really serious and started talking about children and all the things. And so I started being like, wait, I got to figure this out, right? I got to figure out why my periods are so heavy, why I'm on my period for 20 days, 23 days. Like, why is this happening? Girl.
Did you have energy?
None. Zero.
Yeah,
I don't know how I was surviving or working or existing, but I got used to it. It became my norm. So I was used to working with no energy. It was bad. Till finally I found a doctor. So blessed. Found her, and she immediately said, "Girl, you do not need a hysterectomy. You need surgery, right? I'm not going to lie to you about that, but you will be able to have children. You're going to be fine." Got the surgery. So,
fibroid surgery.
Okay. Specifically. And, a lot of women will ask this question, what kind of fibroids did I have? Because that does affect some women can have fibroids, carry children with the fibroids and be fine. But I had what was called a submucosal fibroid, which meant that one of them was directly on my uterine line, like right on the line. And it was releasing a hormone that was preventing anything from sticking to my walls, including a baby. So I couldn't get pregnant.
Got it.
And that was my goal. So after having the surgery and having a really amazing doctor, like I said, she was great, but the person who did my surgery was one of the leading fibroid specialists. And he was, at UCLA at the time and a teaching doctor. So, after removing my fibroids, we had a long sit down on my follow-up, and he basically taught me about everything that was going on with my body, about my fibroids. And one of the things that he said to me, and I had done some research, but to hear it directly from him, because he wanted to ask me a question. He said, this was his question: why do you think Black women take so long to get medical care? And so I told him, well, systemically,
you're like
no one cares. And not only that, we do get care. Like I said, I have been dealing with this for a long time. No one cared. They told me I needed to take you. No one told me that you were an option until I finally made it to a place where, at the point where I had great insurance, I was working. So I was able to seek out the best specialist. She led me to you. Right. And now I have the surgery and my womb is saved. But so many
other have been essentially sterilized.
In that part.
We went from breeders to being sterilized because they can't monetize our offspring anymore.
There you go. So that part, so systemic, right? So he tells me, he says, like, because Black women, so all women, by the time they're like 70 something, will probably have some bout with fibroids or some uterine issue. Okay. Right? But when you're past your childbearing ages, doesn't really matter. Take my, I'm going to go through menopause or have it doesn't matter as much. But Black women, we get fibroids larger and at a younger age, which affects our fertility. Right. So our health, when it comes to our womb health and education, should really start when we're young, before our periods, going into our periods, because by the time we can seek the care we need or find someone who cares a little bit, it's oftentimes too late. Right.
And those contributing factors, I know you shared, is diet.
So they don't actually know.
Stress, or?
It's 100%. So listen, there's not been enough research on our bodies, right?
They don't do research on women, period.
Exactly. And
can I just share this? I didn't know this. They didn't start doing medical research on women. Can you guess the year?
I think you said something, but it was ridiculous. I couldn't believe it.
1993.
See.
So let that
please
sit.
Let it, yes.
Any woman who listens to this, and man,
yes,
women are not valued
at all
in this,
and that's really
which is insanity. Because I'm like, you would not exist. No one would.
How do you think you get here,
without us?
But they don't care. They get here and they leave us for scraps.
So yeah, I mean,
no.
So 1993 is
insane.
When that began.
After I was born, and my mother had 3 miscarriages. One of her children would have definitely survived if someone cared. But they weren't even taking the vitamins or understanding that, like you said, they didn't care about women. They're like, your body knows what, just do it. No one cares, right? So that part. Yeah, it was insane. So I finally went through the process of having the surgery. Like I said, the doctor who was a teacher educated me very well. And so I was like, okay, so you guys don't know why we get fibroids, right? There are some people who've done some research, and if you get into the vlogs or people who've gone through it, or birth workers who have had experience with it, nutritionists who are Black women who, like my nutritionist is, she's a Nigerian woman who is from DC and has eaten, she's been vegan since she was 13 and knows a lot about she's I call her the woman Dr. Sebi, she's really dope. But she gave me a lot of information with I was seeing her before I got pregnant, because I had the surgery and it took me 5 years afterwards to get pregnant, right? So I didn't get pregnant right away. It took me a long time of still thinking what's going to happen with my body. And then I started seeing her change my diet. I had already kind of made some shifts before I met her, but really changed my diet. Girl, I was pregnant in 6 months. I mean, COVID came, I was resting, a lot of stuff, but seriously, diet is a big issue. So when you start getting into the
rest, we're going to highlight that.
Highlight rest.
Simone is booked and busy.
Rest is very important. Rest, water, right? Yeah. All the things, mental health, all the stuff, therapy. Yeah. I was in all the things. I was getting myself together. So in that process, I feel like we're Black women and women, period, but specifically women of color, hold a lot of trauma in our wombs. We're used to all day gritting and bearing it, holding our opinions back, all that thing. That you hold that energy in your body and it starts to affect you, all the stress, all the things. And so I feel like that was affecting me, but I got really intentional about changing my diet. I gave up coffee, I gave up wine, all the things that, because when you get into the research of what fibroids actually are, what the mass is, and what's feeding them, because that's what's really important. Sugar, all these things that feed the caffeine, all these things that feed them, you have to starve it.
They sound like little monsters.
They are little monsters. You have to start to starve those things.
Yeah.
To really prevent them, because what happens with fibroids is they get really tricky. You can even have the surgery, but they will come back.
Shit.
And they will come back with a vengeance if you are not taking care of your body. So not just getting the surgery, but also picking up a holistic routine and also talking to people who can advise you what's the best way. There's different types of surgery. Mm-hmm. There are other solutions. Not every woman needs surgery.
Right.
But they're going to try to get, because they're going to make money off of that. Right. It's like a C-section, So you have to know all of your options and really talk to someone you trust for them to tell you the straight up truth. So my doctor, she's a Jewish woman. Tristan was like, listen, you could try eating healthy. I know you like that, but I think you need a reset. You're already too far gone. And if your goal is to have children, and we're looking at windows here, and not putting any pressure on me, but just like
giving you that, laying it out
for me, like a realistic. Here are your options. I surgery was my option because of specifically where some of my fibroids were located, right? So I had to do that. But by doing that, it made me have a lot of scars on my uterus because that's what happens. You have scar tissue, right? So although I had amazing work done, right? It still is a catastrophic risk of having rupturing if you have a natural childbirth. So the minute you have the surgery, you're signing up saying that I know I'm going to have a C-section. Right. And exactly. I didn't know at the time.
Yep.
But I get it. My doctor, she knew my goal, and she is a medical professional. So she's like, we're going to have the surgery. We're going to get this baby here. All the things, right? It wasn't until later that I realized that I didn't necessarily have to have a C-section either. When you get into the actual numbers, the percentages of you actually rupturing were so small.
That's like under 1%.
It's like under 1%. But as a Black woman, all you're thinking is like, but that percent gonna be me.
Right. But
you don't know. But
and I think there's this thing where some practitioners know and others don't. So it's not a demonizing of an OB, but it's like they don't always know. So a lot of this is like adopted opinion.
Absolutely.
Versus like going, I'll
case by case.
Yeah. And with geriatric pregnancies and your risk factors double.
Yes.
Like with Down syndrome.
Yes.
Yeah, but the risk was like under 1%. So a double of under 1% is like less than 3%. Right.
Yes.
So it's like, it's still really small, but you hear double.
Yeah,
and you just think like, oh, as soon as I turn 35, all of my kids are going to be Down syndrome. I'm like, no, that's not what's going to happen at all. So
being in a geriatric pregnancy, they get you at the doctor twice a week. They're doing all this stuff. So you just think like you're overwhelmed. And
if you choose midwifery care model of care, that won't happen to you.
That won't happen. You will have an advisor the whole way. Like these are things that I found out.
Right.
After going through the process, how important it was. And I'm not going to like my nutritionist had brought this stuff up to me, but it was COVID and I didn't know.
Well, you also had that layer.
It was a bunch of things going on. I didn't have a community of women like you have and have introduced me to that could give me other sides, other perspectives. I didn't have that. It was just me and the internet. And the internet scares the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
Like, it's like...
Right.
It scares you.
Right.
So you go through that, but what they don't tell you is that when you have your baby via C-section at 37 weeks, because they want you to not go into labor when you've had fibroids, right? So at 37 weeks, that your baby may have some complications. My son was born with his lungs underdeveloped, and he had to spend 11 days in the NICU. So as a mother who had a high-risk geriatric pregnancy, who could not do anything, they don't do bed rest anymore, but they're like, don't let your heart rate go above this, which is practically bed rest, right? So that part. And then I'm having my first child via C-section, all the stuff. And then now my baby is in a NICU. So I have to get up, walk to the NICU. It's COVID. Once you're in.
Can we talk about how they made you walk post C-section?
Yeah. Well, yeah. They make you do. Because you're supposed to walk to the bathroom and back, but that's it. But I did a lot of walking because my baby was in a hospital. So when they released me from the hospital. Yeah. When you are, and no one's factoring in that you've released me from the hospital like a regular C-section mother who's supposed to lay in the bed and only go to the bathroom and not pick up anything heavier than my baby. But it's COVID and my baby's in the hospital, so I don't care what I have to do. I'm pulling myself together, walking all the distance. I'm walking through my whole house. I'm getting stuff together. I can't
How long
sleep.
did you stay at the hospital? How long?
3 days, and he was there for 11. Mm-hmm. So I did not start the healing process at all. And actually, because of the risk of rupturing, they gave me an extra IV, which put a lot of extra fluid in my body. I had edema, everything hurt. I was swollen, my ankles, my knees, everything. And still trying to breastfeed. It was the most like...
And not having your baby.
And not having my baby. Yeah. Like, that's the most important part.
Yeah.
And
people don't realize, like, so me putting my lactation counselor hat on, attachment is really important for you and your baby. Skin to skin isn't just about milk exchange, but it's care. And like he came here early, even like a baby's temperature will regulate. Like that's how connected we are. It like gives me goosebumps. And so, and when a baby is premature, the magic of milk, right?
Yes.
And milk is created with proximity to your child.
And sleep and rest.
And all of that. And so where our system is completely failing is to send you away from your child when you
they needed their room. Right. I asked because my insurance actually, and this is what's so crazy is because just like I have great insurance. I could have stayed for another day, but it didn't benefit them. So they got to clear that room out. So they're getting me out of it. I said, can I just say, I was not ready to leave my child. I was not physically ready to leave my child. Mentally ready to leave my child.
And then you said they didn't let you go but once?
Once a day. You could go once to see. But
for how long?
You like, it'd be like an hour because they have to, as soon as they start doing feeding or whatever, you have to leave. So like an hour was the most I would spend with my baby a day. It was insane. It was the hardest time of my life.
Was that just COVID?
Yes, it was only COVID that you could come in. Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
So then were you pumping?
I was pumping. I was taking him. So I was pumping and getting him some milk, which I felt like really contributed to his like his quick recovery. Like and it healed him really. But as soon as I got him home and I finally could like breathe, like I couldn't. Like I was tired. I was like, not like trying to get him to latch, he wouldn't, because they had been
because they introduced the other bottle,
exactly, because I wasn't around him, wasn't producing enough milk. He's a big baby, he needed more milk. They were giving him formula. That was of course not my birth plan, but I didn't have a choice, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So emotionally, how did that make you feel? Like how do you feel?
When I tap into that feeling, it's very hard not to get really emotional because it is. It was very hard.
Yeah.
It was very hard. It was very hard. It was very, very hard because, I held my baby, gave birth to him, and I held him for 2 minutes before they rushed him off to the NICU. And for the first 3 days, they let me see him the first day. I couldn't hold him though. And they were like, we really need him to rest, so we don't want you to come hold him. And it's probably good. So the second day, I didn't even go see him. I was still in the hospital, but I was like, okay, well, at least I'm close. And then it turned into, okay, now we're ready for you to hold him because we think that'll help. Like it was all based on, and I get it. I wanted my baby to heal, so I was trying to follow all the rules, but it did not help with the connection. Like you said, it does not.
You needed each other.
I needed my baby, and my baby needed me. So that part.
Yeah.
The hospital I went to, again, not all hospitals have this, but it was really great that they had a monitor so I could watch him.
Oh.
But girl, I was crazy about that. Like because the camera will shift a little bit or like a I was calling like his binky's out of his mouth. Right. Yes, like could somebody roll him over? I was calling every second. Hey, this is Kieran's mother. I'm looking at him on a monitor. Could you slightly move them? Like I was stressing mother. Like, could you give him a break? No, I can't give him a break. I need to be able, I was like obsessed with the monitor. It's like it haunts you. Like you try to go home and get rest so you can produce more milk. So
I can't imagine.
I didn't sleep.
Of course.
And so my milk did not come anymore. And I was with all the specialists and stuff. But like if you can't get a good,
it's stress. Like people, and this is the thing about, it's so much. And so I think it's just like, you deserve pause to just, I just want to hold space to acknowledge what you went through. And you are strong and you are accomplished and all of those things. And you do have your son and you went through fucking hell.
I did.
And they did fail you in that the system needs to know better. Yes. Nurses need to be trained as lactation specialists. Yes. They need to understand this is not we're animals, right? An animal would not survive without its mom. Like, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it might then go to another mom.
Yeah.
But it needs a mother.
Mothering.
It needs mothering.
Yes.
And you're learning that process as you hold that baby. It's an exchange of
it's natural, but it's still like you're holding your baby for the first time. And like, I know that when your baby's laid on your chest and then you get into the room and you bond through the night, like I didn't have any of that. So every time I held him, even for the hour I was with him, it was like I was nervous. I was nervous about all that I didn't know and didn't get a chance to connect with. Like it was really, really hard. And I had a supportive partner. Not all women have that, right? I had great insurance. Not all women have that, and even that, I had a really bad experience with a nurse at the hospital. I mean, I will give the hospital credit. As soon as I reported it, they immediately put the head nurse on my situation and kept it. But also, they don't want me to say nothing. I'll tell people. They know, they could see who I am, and what happens to the woman who doesn't have a voice.
We have the Earth app. Download.
We do. Yes.
Download the Earth app. It's birth without the B, dropping the B for bias. It's a Yelp review-like system for Black birthing people to review their birth experience, to highlight the foolishness, and to highlight the great providers. So go on there, even if you're white, pink, or purple, to see if providers have good reviews. If they don't use them.
Because if they're not treating Black women well, then are you really an ally?
Yeah, and if you're comfortable knowing that, then we got problems.
Exactly.
So let's talk about this in the last 10 minutes.
Yes.
Because the fourth trimester and postpartum isn't discussed enough.
It's not discussed
enough. How are you managing that?
Yeah, thank you for saying how, because I don't think it ever stops.
No, you're a mom forever.
You're a mom forever. That fourth trimester goes on for 18 years or more? Forever.
Oh,
yeah, forever. But no, it was really
especially hard. As a boy mom.
For real.
Because they're stage 10 clingers.
Exactly. That part, right? So there's this whole, even after a C-section, they're like 6 weeks, you can get back to working out, all this stuff. Well, listen, remember, I never really healed. I was so focused on taking care of my baby that when I was supposed to be resting, I wasn't resting. So my 6 weeks weren't really my 6 weeks, plus all the extra fluid, the edema, all these things. I didn't really heal properly. So when I went to go get my staples taken out of my C-section, because you have staples in and they're supposed to fall out, or they may take a few out. I couldn't because I was still so swollen and didn't heal properly, right? So when I finally got them taken out, I probably should have rested even longer, but I didn't know. So I was in there trying to work out and trying to do stuff. I was on the mirror trying to do stuff, probably prematurely, because I felt like it set me back. Like I don't feel like my body was ready yet. I don't feel like my mind was ready.
That's why I tell everyone, I'm like, that 6 week is it's a sex clearance.
It's a sex clearance.
It is not a healed clearance.
That is not a healed clearance.
It is talk about patriarchy. That's really all it is.
Get back to business. Is she open for business? That's what it really is.
That's all it is.
No, it is.
So don't really, I really encourage women to remove that from their mind of anything of import, because it's how do you feel, and every pregnancy, everybody's situation is completely different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That part you just... How do you feel?
How do you
feel? Because
no
one was asking, how do you feel? Like my partner was, but he was in the throes with me, right?
Right.
No one was saying you had this C-section and your baby how do you feel? Like the medical people, how is your mental health? Because I'm not someone who suffered postpartum, I had a detachment from my child, but I had a detachment from self.
Right.
Right? I was in a whole new body after having a baby. I did not know, I had issues, I had been sitting my whole pregnant, I had arthritis in my knees and all these things I didn't even know. My body, I had to relearn my whole body, right? And be happy with who I was as a person, knowing that I didn't film my baby because I couldn't breastfeed him, all the things, right? Because I want to breastfeed. And, I have amazing friends who I watch, like one of my homegirls, she is a super mom, had both of her babies in the bathtub at home. I seen the pictures, legs, she got it done. She's a boss. Milk for days, milk to share people. And I was like, I ain't got none of that. But it didn't make me any less of a mother. But at the time, you feel like it. But and I needed somebody to tell me.
That's what you wanted. And so what I want us to all understand that people in this world supporting women and mothers is that you need to acknowledge what the desire was for that mother. And if she didn't have that, she's gonna grieve that a
You
bit.
have to
Do you
allow
know?
that. Yeah.
And
I didn't understand that. I didn't understand to allow myself to grieve that I
Yes.
didn't have the process that I want. And that's okay, because everyone says, well, you should be just you have a baby. You
fuck
wanted
your
a baby.
Fuck your should.
Right? I wanted the stuff. I wanted to
You're
have
having feelings, and you have a right to your feelings.
You get what I'm saying? Like so that part,
Yeah.
you know, like my baby turned 2 in January. I thought I was gonna be just stopped breastfeeding a few months before that. I was one of those.
Yeah.
I made it to 3 months, you know, but that just doesn't diminish any part of my motherhood, like any part of my journey. But you don't feel like that when you're going through it. You just feel like you said, you've lost, and it's a grieving process that you have to allow yourself to go through and to acknowledge that part. Because once I stepped into really finding myself, finding you and your messaging and, you know, your workout plans, and feeling seen and feeling connected to that, and being super transparent about my process, and hearing other women chime in saying, oh yeah, well mine was like, or whatever. And even my friends who had these great, amazing experiences, to tune into that, because I do want another child to be able to just tap into the energy. I know my experience will never be like anyone else's, or like my experience that I had the first time, but I want to tap in, and this is what I love that you're doing. I want to tap into the joy part, because although it was stripped from me, it still exists, and I still want to celebrate that part of experiences. And even if someone has 5 kids and they were all bad, we still want to hold space for the fact that we should have joyous experiences. They are available to us. And even when they don't go as planned, there's a new path to joy. And if you're not aware of that, then you don't know to expect it. And just like anything else you attract vibrationally, you know, you have to be intentional about attracting it. So instead of allowing yourself to attract that, you're still in the process of trying to hide the grief. Of not having the process.
And not to hide. I will say this in every single episode. This notion that people have to hide their pregnancy, hide a miscarriage, hide infertility, hide, like, oh my God, like, enough already. It's just ridiculous. It's because it causes to me, so much collateral damage. Everybody has a right to just be. She doesn't need to walk around smiling all the time.
Exactly.
She's happy and she has pain, and she has a right to both of those. And so that's exactly why, although we're both crying, but that's okay, because to me it's cathartic.
It is.
I know I'm like an artist and all of that.
No, but it is cathartic.
But there's a catharsis that has to happen. And it is uncomfortable. And that is, to me, but that's just like when you work out. When your muscles burn, you grow. And you and you reach and achieve your goals. And so I just want everyone to give themselves permission.
The pain structures, just like you said, like working out, or even when if you're going in through therapy or anything, you know, facing the shadow parts of yourselves are the parts that allow you to heal, because the grief supports the joy. They don't exist out.
You have to have
you have to have both. So acknowledging grief in its season allows you to have joy in its season. So if a woman has gone through a hard process, or even women, like where I was in a space of like, I know my body's supposed to be able to have children and get pregnant, but it's not doing that, right? To even be able to be honest about that. You know, when I started getting honest about that, some people started giving me information. It's when I found the doctor who said, you don't. But if I didn't
you had to expose, be vulnerable, share.
That part. The minute I did that, honestly, like when I got really transparent, like I went through a season of transparency, like with my infertility issues, like, and I did all the stuff. I took the medicine. And I got pregnant naturally. So I didn't even have any help. But before that, I was taking pills to try to help. It didn't work. None of the stuff worked.
But I think there's a freedom in the honesty.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Like, you were freed. Because you're carrying a load of that when you hide, right?
Like, when are you guys going to have a baby?
Oh, and when
are you going to have a baby?
Everybody be careful, please, with that, because you don't know how many years somebody's been trying.
And when you hear them say, yeah, you know, or whatever,
right.
like, be present to that.
And people don't have to have babies. And they don't have
to have babies at all.
And they don't have to get married.
And they don't have to have
and
babies
they don't have to have a partner. And like
listen.
all of these things, like all these rules that
your process is your process.
Right,
your road
exactly.
to motherhood is motherhood, because you know the other part about it is that I'm a stepmother too,
Right.
and I take pride in being a bonus mother and supporting, you know, my partner, and I supporting, you know, her mother in her growth as well. Like that's really important to me too. Like that's a part of my motherhood journey too, which is a completely different story,
Right.
you know, but they're all a part of my story.
Yeah.
And I realize the more honest I can be about those parts of my life, not only do I inspire and help women, but they come and inspire and help me.
Of course.
And
it's reciprocal. I think I absolutely think that. All right. To end on a high note and close, what you shared, usually I ask, like, what was your biggest push moment? You absolutely have shared quite a few moments that you were able to push to the other side of. And I'm so grateful that it brought you joy and your son. What are you giving birth to next?
Ooh, so much. So I'm totally in a season of not just a creation season, because you know I'm a writer, so I have a couple of things that I'm working on, right? So that's my work and that's my passion. But you know, I am really in a season of once I got back to myself, right? I realized that not only was I a new person, right? But I was this.
You leveled up. You the upgrade.
Leveled up. I was the upgraded version of the person I was before, and tapping into that is so important. And women, whether it's through their womb journeys or through their just healing their heart or whatever part of it is, connecting with women and promoting growth and allowing women to know that they've been seen. So whether it's being a part of your initiative, you know, I have some other people who I'm trying to do my best to be a part of their initiatives, but just finding my way. Because here's the other thing, you know, I was in a season of like trying to put something like this together myself, right? But I honestly did not have, let me tell you something. I was doing the work and looked at your deck and said, she's already done the work, right? So why am I trying to redo something that would just be my ego, right? If ego aside, you have done amazing work to find amazing people, and also the initiatives that you have and trying to implement around just helping Black birth workers be seen, be placed. It's so powerful and so profound that I was like, I need to just get on that board and help her keep pushing your agenda. So I'm really in a season of trying to not only find my own ways and I'm creating like behind the scenes, and I can't wait to share some stuff that I have going on, but creating ways to really allow women to connect with who they are. But I'm also trying to connect with women like you who, like I said, are already doing the work to help women find pathways to health, to growth, you know, to being seen. And you have done a great job of finding women who are doing the work just like you. So it's dope. Like I just love to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna end here, but I want to. We don't always see the behind the scenes, and I want to highlight to every Black woman that's listening. There are Black women who see you, who love you, and who will support you and continue to push you forward to your destiny and you know, help you really see your dharma come to life. And Simone, absolutely, I want to thank you for being one of those women in my life. And it just feels so good. Like
it does.
People don't see the BTS of the love and support that happens. And that was one thing she said. She's like, I want you to make sure you like notate and like take that all in, because that's the magic of this, right? It's not this like shiny stuff. It's like when I pick up the phone and call a stranger, like I talked to Annie Jean Baptiste, who like does this dope like D&I like at Google. We found each other on the gram, and I was like, "You look dope." She was like, "You look dope too. What you need, girl?" Complete strangers, and I'm like, it's blowing my mind. I'm like, so just ask for what you need. Just reach out to random people, and because we we got
We
this.
need each other.
We need each other. We don't have to do this
need
shit
each
by
other.
ourselves.
We do not.
This idea of like doing it all by yourself, sis, don't do that. Don't do that. We soft
delegate.
Delegate.
Being a mother has taught me how to delegate.
Birth queen, stay on your throne.
Stay on your
and
throne.
Delegate.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I love you
Thank
so much.
you.
And I'm so glad we were able to make this space and time. I'm going to come back to LA. You can come back to New York and visit too.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for listening. And I'm sure we'll do this again.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, boo.
Oh, that was great.